Love having this young lady on because she just doesn't take any guff off of anybody, especially somebody named Gavin Newsom. I just think it's great. It is Tricia McLaughlin, DHS Assistant Secretary of Public Affairs. She's been on the show many times. We met in person, which is something great as well. And congratulations on your recent marriage. How are you, Tricia? Good to see you.
Oh, Joe, it's so great to be on with you. Thank you for having me.
Always love having you on. You know, what's interesting about Gavin Newsom is he really is a good actor. And I'll say that not really meaning to compliment the guy, but he's got people believing he's got some sort of ability to tell you guys, the DHS, what you can and can't do. So let me ask you something very basic. I know the answer, but I think those watching and listening want to hear you say it. Does Gavin Newsom or any governor of any state have the ability to tell the Department of Homeland Security and the administration that you can't do something when it comes to enforcing laws on immigration?
Absolutely not. Gavin Newsom must not be familiar with the Constitution or with the Supremacy Clause. So we will not be complying with this federal law enforcement mask ban. I think it's really despicable because, Joe, keep in mind what behind the context is the fact that our law enforcement is facing a 1,000% increase in assaults against them. And it's not just our law enforcement. Our law enforcement, their spouses are being doxxed, where they work, where their children go to school. It's hard to, I think we get lost in the humanity when we talk about statistics. 1,000% increase in assaults against our men and women. What does that mean? I mean, we just saw last weekend out of Chicago, one of our ICE law enforcement officers was being dragged for many yards. He was in serious condition. Fortunately, we found out just yesterday he's out of the hospital and
Good.
he's doing okay, but he was really banged up. And then just 2 weeks ago out of Miami, we saw two illegal aliens ramming our law enforcement with their car as they were trying to evade arrest. We have politicians like Gavin Newsom, like AOC, who actually just held a webinar on how to evade arrest, evade ICE law enforcement, and it's really getting out of control. It's directly contributing to the violence we're seeing against our men and women.
For those who don't know, in the Constitution, it says all issues of naturalization fall to the federal government. And that includes immigration, obviously. I know that Jan Brewer, and you're way too young to remember this, but Jan Brewer, when she was the governor of Arizona, she did SB 1070, which basically said, I'm going to do an immigration law in the state like we have in the United States. And then President Obama and his wingman, Eric Holder, sued her and won because they said all these issues are under our purview. Now, of course, they did it for the opposite reason that President Trump is doing it. They did it so they couldn't enforce the law if they didn't want to, and Jan Brewer couldn't usurp them. But there is no governor on this in this country, on this map, that can tell you and Kristi Noem and President Trump what you can and can't do when it comes to immigration. Yet, Tricia, they keep doing it. When Gavin Newsom's saying words, and his law doesn't mean anything, you guys can certainly wear masks and protect the families of the ICE agents. But let's talk about Chicago. I'm so glad you brought that up.
Yeah.
J.B. Pritzker literally got on camera and said, take out your phone. Then he said Android or Apple. I don't know why he had to say that. Take out your phone and basically get in the faces of those who are actually doing law enforcement to get bad guys and bad girls off the streets of Chicago. And that's exactly what the people did. So is there no recourse that you and the administration can take because somebody just incited violence against the ICE agent who, thank God, didn't lose his life? There's something there, isn't there?
Yeah, absolutely. This is certainly something we're looking at with Attorney General Bondi. It's really despicable what's happening. And to your point, it's not isolated incidents. Look at Gavin Newsom's mask ban law. It's called the No Secret Police Act. That is intended, of course, to be an allusion to the Nazis, to the secret police, to the
Yes.
Gestapo. And what did the Americans do in World War II? We fought the Nazis and we killed the Nazis.
Yes.
That's exactly what they're calling for, increasing assaults against law enforcement. And J.B. Pritzker's done the same thing, likening them to Nazis, likening them to the Gestapo. What they should be doing is actually taking a look at the really depraved individuals who we've gotten out of Los Angeles, who we've gotten out of Chicago. Joe, we're talking about MS-13 gang members. I can't tell you the number of child predators that we've gotten off of the streets of Chicago. It is despicable. Hundreds. We have about 600 arrests right now. Chief Bavino, who's on the ground there, and our ICE law enforcement as well, have done a phenomenal job. But just over the weekend, they were facing major riots. Their cars' tires were being slashed. They were being assaulted, cans thrown at them. And yet when we call local law enforcement for backup because our officers are being assaulted, we don't get any pickup. Local law enforcement won't help us even when our law enforcement's being assaulted.
I bet they would like to. That's the thing. Brandon Johnson, the mayor of Chicago, said, we will never, ever, ever help ICE. And you know that the frontline law enforcement officers have no say here. You know that they would probably do it if they could, but they'll lose their jobs. They'll lose their pensions. They'll have to leave the city. They're in a real pickle right now. So, Tricia, I guess the question becomes this. At what point is it incitement by a governor or a mayor? At what point is it aiding and abetting the bad guys by a governor or a mayor? I mean, it really does rise to that level in my mind. Maybe I'm not thinking right. Are we looking at possibly doing something to stop them from helping the bad guys?
Oh, I think we absolutely have to. We have to be looking at Mayor Wu out of Boston, what she
Yes.
said. Karen Bass, Gavin Newsom, you said Mayor Brandon Johnson out of Chicago. It really is directly contributing to the assaults against our officers. And I do think that we likely will be seeing in the coming days potential legal action.
Good.
Todd Lyons, who's the acting director of ICE, he just sent out a letter to these sanctuary city jurisdictions, their mayors and their governors, saying if you don't comply with us, legal recourse will be happening. And I think Americans can expect that and should demand it.
Tricia McLaughlin, she's DHS Assistant Secretary of Public Affairs, DHS.gov. Amazing young lady. So as we're watching this unfold and as we're watching them get in the way of it, you and I both know that the residents of D.C. want a safe D.C. The residents of Chicago want a safe Chicago. The residents of Los Angeles want a safe Los Angeles. You're a rational, really smart person, so maybe you can't wrap your brain around this. I have a hard time with it as well, although I'm not as smart as you are. Can you wrap your brain around why a leader of a city, somebody on the city council, why a leader of a county or a leader of a state would ever want it to be more dangerous, less peaceful, and have plenty of criminals on the street? What sense does that make? What are they achieving by going this thing? I mean, does it hurt your brain to try to consider why they would do that? What's going on?
Maybe this feels like low-hanging fruit, but really the only thing I can think of is Trump derangement syndrome.
Yeah.
Because why else would you want safer streets? Why else would you not want plummeting carjackings, which is exactly what we're seeing in Washington, D.C. Homicide rates down nearly 50%. Why would you not want that for families? It's incredibly good for business to have safe communities, to have people want to go out, bring their families out to museums, bring them out to dinner. That's what these communities, these city councils should be demanding of themselves and their leadership. And yet it seems like they're completely hamstrung and really spineless at the really radicals in their leadership and maybe part of their base.
You know, very well said. And as we're watching it unfold, I know the residents are rising up. You and I have both seen people who are residents of Washington, D.C., many of them black residents of Washington, D.C., where the crime was through the roof, who are saying, thank you, President Trump. We're hearing people in Chicago go to the city council meetings and yell at Brandon Johnson and yell at the city council going, what are you doing? Why are you aiding and abetting and helping illegal aliens and you're ignoring our community and our needs? I think that people will rise up and these people won't be long for their jobs, I hope anyway. But in the meantime, how do you continue to do it knowing you're basically going into not only a war zone because the illegal aliens are hiding and many of them are very violent criminals, but you're also in a war zone against the city establishment. When ICE goes in, and I know that Todd Lyons has spoken to this, but let me ask you as well. When ICE goes in, I mean, they have to have a heightened sense of alert where otherwise they could have gone in, had partnership with the locals, gotten a bad guy out and said, have a nice day and had a cup of coffee. When they go in, is there a different level of heightened awareness that they have to go in with because they know they're going into a combat zone in more ways than one?
Yeah, absolutely. And like I mentioned before with the Chicago, unfortunately, their local law enforcement is hamstrung by those sanctuary city policies. So they're not going to get the backup from those local jurisdictions. But you made such a great point there. Those in our communities who are the most vulnerable, they want law enforcement around. It's those people who live behind fences, like fences, and have "He has no home" signs out front of their yard.
Right.
That they're the ones who are pushing these radical defund the police policies, the people whose lives and their families are not at risk. It's really champagne socialism. So as far as our law enforcement, the biggest problem we're seeing in these sanctuary cities and really why we need to flood the zone in those areas is because their local law enforcement refuse to work with our ICE law enforcement. So say they have an MS-13 gang member in their jail, or they're holding a child predator, they will just release those people back out onto the streets instead of working with our ICE law enforcement to not only notify them, but to turn those individuals over so they don't re-perpetuate crime. So I will say, if you see a law enforcement officer out today, whether it be CBP, ICE, state, or local, thank them, because they really are being dehumanized and demonized by leaders, and it's really disgusting.
It's a very good point. It's Tricia McLaughlin from the DHS. I appreciate the time and the access. This is a point that you brought up many times, and Tom Homan has told me on the show many times as well, that what you just explained is the problem. You've got a bad guy, a Tren de Aragua guy, or an MS-13 guy who's here illegally behind bars in the city of Denver or Chicago or LA or New York, and instead of them handing that person over, now ICE has to go in. And because the locals have released the guy, he's now in some apartment in some place, he's holed up somewhere. And in that place are nonviolent illegal aliens that you aren't necessarily looking for right now. But they're all going to get picked up too as collateral damage. So you go in there and get the bad guy. You get 6 other people that might not have even been on the radar yet. They're going to go as well. Literally, sanctuary city policies are causing more people to be deported than fewer. I mean, I got that right, don't I? You're not looking for the person who's been here and has been hiding under the radar for 20 years. You're looking for the bad guy, and now he's hiding with that other person. He or she's going to go too.
You're completely right. You make such a good point. When we say we're going after the worst of the worst criminals, President Trump has said that routinely. We say it all the time, but that's not a talking point. That's the reality of what we're going for. But then when you have individuals who are potentially around these criminal illegal aliens that are the targets, those are called collateral arrests. And if you're in the country illegally, you are breaking the law and you will still be arrested and you will still be deported. But those aren't necessarily the targets. Though I will say the facts are fully on our side. 70% of those who are in this country illegally who have been arrested either have pending criminal charges against them or prior criminal convictions. But
70%, Tricia?
70%.
Wow.
7 in 10. Yeah.
That's
totally
crazy. Go ahead.
Yeah. But I will say, I mean, we have seen since President Trump took office, 2 million illegal aliens exit this country, 1.6 million from self-deportations and a little over 400,000 from deportations. But it is a lot safer for the migrant, it's a lot safer for law enforcement, and it's a lot more cost-effective for these individuals to just leave today.
And if they leave today, I mean, it's not like we're not a good country. You were literally saying if you do it yourself, there's one program, you get $1,000, you can apply to come back here legally. It's not like you're closing the door forever, but if we have to deport you, you're not coming back. That's the way it works, right?
Oh, exactly. It's actually an incredibly generous offer. These individuals who decide to use the CBP Home app, they get $1,000 exit bonus to start their new life in their home country, and then they get a free flight home and preserve the potential option to return the legal right way. But if we have to come out, arrest you, and deport you, you won't be able to return to this country.
You know, when I went to Washington with my daughter Salmon, the first time we met again in Kerrville when you were here. When we went to Washington, what really jumped out at me is how young you all are. There is a young, brightness in the administration. And I bring that up for this very simple reason. You guys are really good with social media. You guys are really good with memes. You guys are now comparing going and getting the illegal aliens to playing Pokemon. I want to show this on the screen if I can. This is a story from Fox News Digital today. Homeland Security releases Pokemon-themed video to highlight immigration arrests. Gotta catch them all. To me, that's your youth. Because I'm getting a little long in the tooth, but I'm still somebody who's pretty good in technology. When I saw this today, it cracked me up. I could not believe it. But I think it's great because Gavin Newsom thinks he's playing some sort of a meme game with you guys, and every single time you come out on top. Because, I mean, you're on, as my friend Frank from Pinal County, Arizona, if you know Fridays with Frank, but he's a great guy. He does a lot of videos. He's a sheriff's deputy. He says, I'm on the mountain of right. You're in the valley of wrong. You guys are on the mountain of right, and you righteously stand there. In previous administrations, they would give in, and Gavin, how can we work it out? You guys are playing Pokemon. Tell me what goes into the mindset. Have I nailed it? That you're just young and happening and you're really tuned into what's going on?
That's very generous. I don't know if I'm young and happening. I might be a little actually long in the tooth for the Pokemon. I mean, I have to give full credit to my team. They're incredibly innovative. We got 5 cowboys who are working hard every single day to turn this these things out, very creative. But I think a big part of our strategy, Joe, is that we want to be reaching young people. We also want to be reaching people who are culturally engaged, but maybe they're not engaged with what's going on in the news, what's not going on with politics, or what's going on with governance. We want to be able to reach them and really tell the story. We don't want them to just be getting the information from CNN or whatever is on their TikTok feeds. That's telling them that ICE is, horrendous and they're going after grandmas. We want to tell them we're getting the worst criminals off of American streets. And that's what those Pokemon cards show. These are real individuals, child predators, MS-13 gang members, drug traffickers. That's who we're going after, and we are going to catch them all.
You're saying it in a language that young people can follow. I'll give you a quick anecdote. You didn't ask for this, but I will anyway. I went to McDonald's today to get some lunch. And as I'm getting the lunch, there's like a 20-year-old guy who's helping me. He said, man, I watch your TikTok all the time. Now, I've got 1.1 million on TikTok, and I'm a 59-year-old conservative guy. Think about that. He said, I watch it every day. And he said, I had no idea some of the stuff that you're saying. Then I check it, and you're right. The problem is, and you guys I think are solving this problem even better than I am, is that these people get one-side indoctrination from high school, from college, from whatever, from CNN, MSNBC, and everything else. And when they see you speaking about it, or even Kristi Noem speaking about it, or me speaking about it, they go, wait a second, there was another side to this? So that's got to be part of the strategy, right? I mean, I'm not out here, making new sausage. We're just doing a process that says there are two sides of it, and open your mind. And that's exactly what's going on.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, Joe, we just had a story come out today from NBC, who, by the way, didn't even ask us for comment. But what they said was that ICE used a 5-year-old girl with autism as bait to get her father out of the house. That was completely false. What happened was the father, who was the target of the operation, he has a prior criminal history of strangulation, domestic abuse, and other charges. He was getting pulled over by ICE law enforcement and ran from the car, abandoned his daughter. And of course, then our ICE law enforcement is going to stay with the child to make sure that they're okay and they're not abandoned. But we see these smears all of the time. And thank God for voices like yours who help correct the narrative and tell the truth of what's going on in America and under the Trump administration.
It is Tricia McLaughlin. Go and follow her on all the social media. DHS Assistant Secretary of Public Affairs. One last thing on this, and again, congratulations on doing so wonderfully with social media. You are winning hearts and minds. But one last thing, I don't know if you knew Charlie. I knew Charlie Kirk. We were friends. We texted back and forth all the time. He'd been on the show 4 times, and I missed the hell out of the guy. But what we saw Sunday was amazing. Did you know the guy? And any reflection on his loss?
I did know Charlie. I actually was on his show just the day before his murder. And, what we saw with Erica Kirk on Sunday was nothing short of inspiring. I think it inspired so many to turn to Christ and to get back to church. And she is a force. And I think she will be a force for years to come and really started a revival in our country.
She forgives the guy. I'm having a hard time doing it, but the fact that she did it really as a leader shows everybody what we can find in our hearts. Tricia, we love you coming on. Come on again very soon. Thanks for all the information. And again, we're gonna keep on watching what you guys are putting out there. I think that you're out memeing Gavin Newsom, which I think is great. Thanks for coming on.
Thank you for having me, Joe.
All right, you bet. We're back after this. Stay right here.